Some important baseball games are being played when it comes to the White Sox. It's just in the Arizona Fall League, and it's some of the team's top prospects. Let's discuss how they're doing with my guests next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the FanSided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, no one has watched more Chicago White Sox minor league baseball than my guest, Ian Eskridge of FutureSox.net. And he is here to discuss how Colson Montgomery and Grant Taylor are doing in the Arizona Fall League, along with some of the other Sox prospects. He and I will also discuss the Sox manager search in the second segment, and then we will talk about who could go from the farm system, who from the farm system can realistically help the team this season. And Ian, it sounds like Colson Montgomery is having a great Arizona Fall League. Is this a sign he's finally figured things out, as he did have a good September too in Charlotte, or is this just a mix of facing pitchers at different levels in the minors?
I think you saw some positive steps for him in AAA in Charlotte, obviously over the last few weeks of the season, and it looks like it's carried over into the Arizona Fall League. There's some good swing decisions being made. He's walking at a pretty good clip. The strikeouts haven't bit him as bad as they did in Charlotte, and the power showing up as well. Granted it is Arizona, but he's hitting the ball hard.
Yeah, and in terms of the pitchers that he's facing, is he facing those some more of the low A, double A guys, or is he facing more of the triple A? Because velocity was the issue that he had hitting at Charlotte, if I remember.
He's hitting velocity in the AFL. The way I look at this whole thing is that he can only hit against who's pitching against him. And the most important thing here is that he succeeds. You don't want to see him struggle, and he's not. So that's all you can really look, for in the AFL for him. So
yeah, and you watched him a ton, and it sounded like, in talking to a lot of the guys at Future Sox, it just sounded like maybe he got rushed up to AAA. Maybe he should have started the year at AA.
It was an aggressive assignment for sure. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was rushed more than it was just like, them throwing him into the fire and letting him get his bearings. He's going to end up there at some point anyway, so might as well let him struggle now. They had the confidence in his talent to be able to take over, and eventually it did. It was just, the first few months were a long first few months. He had a lot of strikeouts, and I think that a lot of it had to do with him pulling the ball and not going the other way and not going to left center field. And he started doing that a little bit later in the year, and he's definitely doing it in the Fall League, getting some hits to the opposite field. So
how important is it for Grant Taylor to get these innings, especially after missing a lot of this season with injuries?
I think it's a big deal. The results in the Fall League for especially for a guy like him that missed a bunch of time, I feel is the results are kind of secondary. It's more about getting his pitch count up and facing some good competition, because I kind of feel like they're probably going to try and push him a little bit quicker because of the lost innings and the age and all that stuff. And I feel like the talent's there. It's just going to be one of those things where he needs to be comfortable throwing those innings, and I feel like he's doing that in Arizona.
With his velocity, do you think it makes more sense though to maybe start getting him ready to be a bullpen pitcher just because of all the depth you have, or is this guy definitely starting rotation material?
They're absolutely not thinking about that, especially not yet. The guy's got way too much promise to even think about doing that at this point.
Is Tim Elko making a case to be a cheap replacement for Andrew Vaughn?
In my opinion, I think so. There's some struggling with K's right now in the AFL. There's been some games where he's had 3 strikeouts in a game, 4 strikeouts I think happened once. It's not that I don't think that he can cut down on those, because I know that he's trying to do damage. That's always been his thing. And he's got 3 home runs in the AFL right now. I think he's tied for second or third, I think, in home runs or something like that. So he's doing pretty well. I obviously you'd like to see him cut down on the Ks a little bit, because the Ks to walk hasn't been great in the AFL. So
Is that what's been holding him back in terms of, like, I know you guys have a different ranking system, but like MLB Pipeline still doesn't have him in their top 30, and it's like all this guy does is hit.
yeah, I think that's like a just a construct of how these lists are put together. It's not. I don't think that anybody with FutureSox or anybody, I mean, even in general, MLB Pipeline, there's no ill will towards Tim Elko thinking that he can't play in Major League Baseball. I think it's more just a combination of age and and some concerns about things like the K rate and stuff like that. That they're worried that that's going to be an issue at the major leagues, and rightfully so. So I think that kind of hinders his his ranking as far as those lists go.
How important is it for him and Eric Alder to make the Team USA for the WBSC Premier 12? And what the heck is that?
It's just it's a tournament team for Team USA. Adler's actually looked really really fantastic in the AFL. The one weird thing for him is that you haven't been seeing strikeouts for him. I think he's got like 2 strikeouts to 3 walks, which is kind of strange for him, because I'm used to seeing him, have pretty decent K to plate appearances, I guess. And it's been a little bit lower in the AFL, but it's a step up in competition for him. The hitters in the AFL this year, they're pretty advanced. So it's been a little bit more difficult for pitchers, not to mention in general, the AFL is a struggle for pitchers anyway. They've gone through, a lot of them have gone through a full season, and like Adler had like a little hiccup injury thing for a little while. So he's put in a pretty decent workload, and then you're putting him out in Arizona where the ball just flies. So that doesn't help any of the pitchers at all. And also why you see, huge offensive numbers out there.
All right, well, let's get another expert voice on the manager search, as I want to get Ian's take after the break on Locked On White Sox. Hey, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. So let's see, fun and simple concept with the chance to double your money if your picks hit. Sign me up, and especially if I can get my money quickly and use it pretty much anywhere in the any state in the Midwest. definitely want to get in on that. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And again, welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple and Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. But if you want the best analysis of where the hope is, and that is the Chicago White Sox prospect, you got to be tapping into FutureSox, and that's who I got, Ian Eskridge. And Ian, again, where can we find all your great work?
We have written work at FutureSox.net. James Fox and I do a stream every Monday night here during high school football season, and Sunday nights not in the high school football season. 8 p.m. on YouTube and on Twitch, and so I'm at Daily White Sox on Twitter and at FutureSox on Twitter as well. You can find all the highlights from the current fall league season, and you can go back and check a bunch of the all the prospects from throughout the season as well on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, how I swear anytime I turn on a Barons game, I cannot get Noah Schultz. So anytime you did the highlights, that's basically how I saw Noah Schultz play. I appreciate all your highlights too, because unfortunately I would have to watch the regular White Sox a lot. So it wasn't like I was able to watch the future and the hope. So I would definitely check your highlights and your content. I really appreciate all the work that you do. So yeah, if you're a White Sox fan and you want some hope, Ian's the guy that you want to be following and checking out. And FutureSox too. You guys just do amazing work. All right. So I did check out your stream on Monday. You guys had Beef Loaf from the 108. I know you guys were talking about the Sox manager search. So I want to get your thoughts on that. So what characteristics are you looking for in the next manager?
It's kind of a tough situation. I kind of mentioned this on our show. I feel like this is the first time that I can remember where there isn't like a consensus guy that everybody's looking to and saying that's the guy that I want. There's a bunch of good candidates. I'm just kind of looking for somebody that's professional, has won before, and is a guy who can relate to the players and can also have. I don't necessarily want a drill sergeant in the clubhouse, but I want somebody that can run a clubhouse. We've watched this for, 4 years now where, you don't know what's going on in the clubhouse, and it seems like a bunch of guys are just rebelling and there's all sorts of issues in the clubhouse. And I don't want to deal with that stuff anymore. I want a professional that knows what he's doing and knows how to run a proper franchise, like a proper clubhouse. That's essentially what I'm looking for. Because right now with the kind of talent that you're going to have, I want somebody that can develop somebody, and and can point people in the correct direction when they're freshly coming up from the minor leagues. I think that, if they manage to keep Grady Sizemore around in some capacity there, because I personally would be shocked if he ended up there as the manager. It would be nice to have some guys that played Major League Baseball, and that was one of the big complaints I heard from quite a few of the minor league guys is that there weren't enough guys that played in the majors. Like guys kind of, whether or not it's necessarily the right thing to think. They kind of look for guys that have done it before, regardless of whether or not what they're being told is the correct thing for them.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm fully on board with you. Basically, what you've been saying is what I've been espousing too. You want to get some guy like I do believe a manager is like a quarter of a HR basically manager. In terms of the clubhouse, run the clubhouse, make sure it's in good order, it's a positive environment for them to work, and that they're professionals. And I agree on that. That you want to have a guy that especially has gotten to the big leagues that can say, "Yeah, I've been there." I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you're succeeding, and I know what it's like when you're struggling, and here's how we're going to get through it. And that's why, like, for example, if they do go with Clayton McCullough, I do think then it's imperative, and you want him to have his own staff, but I do think it's imperative then that you at least push Grady Sizemore to be on his staff and some capability. Like, even if it's I'm seeing these interesting titles like, communications and strategy coach, like put him there or something like that. Are you happy with how this manager search is going?
As of right now, I don't really have any reason to be unhappy. I mean, the main reason that I'd say that I don't is because we've heard so many different names from different clubs that have had, that have been getting a look. I mean, whether who ends up there, I don't know. Um, but I think that so far, unless the whole thing gets hijacked, that it looks like it's headed in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, Phil Nevin is the hire. I would feeling that it's going to get hijacked because of his ties to Tony La Russa, but otherwise, it sounds like anybody else they go with, it wouldn't be hijacked there. Would it make sense for the next manager to add Sergio Santos to his coaching staff, or should the team keep him at AA or maybe even move him up to AAA?
This is one of the guys that I really want to keep around. His players loved him. He made, for the most part, I mean, he's going to go through his lumps as a manager. But I feel like he made, some solid decisions down in Birmingham, and I don't want to lose him. I don't want to let him walk. So I don't know exactly what it is that's going to take to keep him with the franchise. But I would like to see them figure out some way to kind of work that together.
Is the franchise making a mistake by overlooking him? Because again, the logic would be is, okay, you want to bring up a lot of these younger players that you think are going to be core players. He's managed them all. Why not just make him the manager?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be involved in the hiring process or the interview process because I don't know how he's going to interview, but I have to imagine, from the interviews that I've seen done with him and what I know of him from his playing careers that the guy is a professional and the guys that all played for him this year, every single one of them, nobody said a bad thing about the guy. Um, I think that he would certainly be worth keeping around for this org. I whether or not it ends up being with the major league club, whether they bump him to AAA, whether I don't even know if he's willing to stick around at AA. He comes in his first season in AA and wins the championship. So, is that going to be something that he's just immediately like, well, I've proven that I can do this at AA, what's next?
Yeah,
I don't know. So,
yeah, and plus, I mean, they may start Noah Schultz there, and Hagen Smith, but at some point, those guys are going to move on, and it sounds like there's, you would know more, but it's not like they've got a ton of guys coming up behind in Single A that where you can basically contend for another championship. Or am I wrong on that?
well, that was kind of one of the issues was Advanced A. Um, I don't know exactly what happened there this year as far as competition went, but they did not generally fare very well. And when guys would move up to Double A, I mean, take DJ Gladney for instance. He came up there and he ended up getting the game-winning hit that won them the championship, and he didn't move up till I don't know, like mid-August or something. It was late. Rikku Nishida, same thing, a late addition to the team. There were a couple of guys that they moved to Double A that made a big difference in Double A, but overall in Advanced A they struggled. So there's definitely some pitching down there that could help. Um, I'm still waiting to see whether or not the bats will be able to be moved up, and I think that that's why you didn't see too many of the bats move up. Rikku and DJ were kind of an exception. So I don't know. We'll see what happens next year as far as where they end up starting guys in the org. I'm not entirely sure yet.
Oh, we're going to get to Rikku in the next segment, but before we get to that segment, who is your choice to be the next manager? If you got to make the hire, who would it be?
If I've kind of struggled with answering this. Like George Lombard seems like a good candidate as well. McCullough seems like he's a decent option coming from the Dodger system, and he's got some obviously some experience with winning as well. I hearing that Donnie Ecker's out of the equation is kind of a bummer because like his particular skill set is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Now, is it interesting in the way that he would be a great manager? Who knows? I mean, that's the whole thing about this thing is that until you see the guy run a team for a season, you don't really know what you're going to get. That's the unfortunate thing about getting a guy that's never managed before. But like I kind of like I don't see the Buck Showalter thing happening. I'd be surprised if Nevin happens, but can't kind of put anything past the front office over there. We don't know.
Yeah, you can never put anything past me, the shadow GM, and Buck Showalter would have been great in 2020. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think that would work. And fully on board with Edgar. I thought he was very interesting how he views leadership and that. But especially we are talking about a scenario where look, we're just hoping that this guy can help the team develop these players, but also just be a net neutral manager at the floor. Like just don't cost games, especially like how Pedro did that. Well, let's get back to some prospect talk with one of the most knowledgeable resources when it comes to the Sox farm system. So let's get Ian's take on which players can make an impact next season after the break on Locked On White Sox. NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. The traditional spreads, money lines, and over-unders are always fun to play on FanDuel, but it's the props, parlays, and futures where you can really hit it big. America may not like ties, but if you want to triple your money, the Bears and Commanders ending the first quarter all square is at plus 300. You can also double your money if the first scoring play is a Chicago Bears touchdown, which is at plus 200, and a field goal is at plus 320. The Bears winning and the over of 44.5 being met is at plus 250. That hits, and you say you put $10 on it, you can at least win $25. And the Blackhawks losing the past 2 games has moved. They're making the playoffs to plus 1,000. So if you're still a diehard, think all it takes is Connor Bedard to start scoring some goals, and they can sneak in. Even a buck down on that could turn into $10 if they defy the odds. That's FanDuel.com. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers that listen to the show. Really appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Also recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, or subscribe or follow wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. I would also suggest subscribing to the YouTube channel FutureSox. I believe that's the name of it. As Ian Eskridge is my guest. He hosts with James Fox, the managing editor of FutureSox, weekly stream. You definitely want to tap into that. It's also, I believe, available on all major podcast platforms, correct? I usually catch on.
Correct. Yeah.
So I had Josh Nelson on the show a couple of days ago from Sox Machine, and he said the front office is keen to keep Edgar Quero in the minors to start the season. Is that a good idea?
Why not? Let him get some at bats. Let him marinate a little bit and get back into the swing of things before you move him up. I don't have any issue with that. I don't see any reason to start him on the major league roster, because we know what we're going to see next year out of this major league roster. You're going to see a lot of young guys. You're going to see a lot of guys that are working their ways into the major leagues. It's not going to be, like a, I wouldn't expect it to be 100-win team. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's like anything that, like he's the last piece for this team. I feel like he's somebody that's going to have to, work his way in. You want to make sure that he's good to start, and then continues that in the majors.
Yeah, and if they do bring him up in time to qualify for the Rookie of the Year, do you think he's capable of it? And the reason why I ask is it would be important for one of these guys to maybe win that award because you get that extra draft pick.
Yeah, it would be nice. I think he's certainly capable. He fixed a couple of things in his swing at the end of the year last year, like right around when he moved to Charlotte, and there was a power uptick and an average uptick as well. And throughout the entire season, this last year, all the pitchers that worked with him said that he was great to work with. So that's what you want to hear.
All right, who's the one prospect no one is thinking about that could help the team next season?
Well, let's see here. There's a bunch of pitching stuff going on in the minor leagues. I'd say probably somebody that nobody's thinking about as a guy that could come up and do something might be Tyler Schweitzer. He's I think he was the MAC pitcher of the year at Ball State, and he's good college pitcher. He took a step this last year. He put up some decent numbers with Birmingham this year, and that could be a possibility for somebody that could come up and do something like fill in some spot starts and kind of come out of one of those guys that comes out of nowhere. He didn't really come out of nowhere. He's been putting in work. It's just one of those things where he's not ranked as high as some of the other guys. So it would be a guy that you wouldn't necessarily expect to do something like that. But I think that he could. He does have the talent.
Do we see Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz in the Chicago White Sox rotation at some point next season?
I don't know about next year. I don't doubt that they could do it. I just don't know if the White Sox would be willing to do it. Because I kind of feel that if they're going to be ready for the majors, it would be later on in the year. And I don't know if they're going to want to throw them on the 40-man next year, because I know that they're probably still going to be doing a bunch of roster churn.
All right. And finally, is it wrong to think Rikku Nishida is going to be a good big league player? I don't know why. He's become my guy.
If he continues to do what he's been doing, I don't think that you can shortchange him. Like the guy just, he's a constant hindrance on the other team's pitching staff. They don't like pitching to him. When he gets on base, he's a pain. He's stealing bases. He's really fidgety. On the base paths. The one thing that he definitely does need to work on a little bit is defense. But that's, it's a work in progress. I think that he's definitely somebody that could pay dividends in a particular scenario. He could, obviously could take some time up in the major leagues and, do fine. I just don't know what their thinking is, if he's a finishing like a role player type guy, or if he's somebody that they think that could start. That's a solid question for a Chris Getz or a Paul Janisch type guy. Find out what they think his ceiling is.
Yeah, because especially, I think one of the reasons why I just really come to like him is his swing reminds me a lot of Ichiro. Like, I'm not saying he's going to beat Ichiro, but it's a nice, bat to ball, quick, gets there, and it's a nice even swing, kind of like Ichiro. And that was one of my favorite swings, because it was just so fluid and it's going to get contact. And I'm fully aware the guy's not going to hit for power. It's just, there's just something about him when I watch him where I'm like, man,
he's fun.
Yeah, all he does too is he hits. It seems like anytime I turned on a Barons game or a Dash game, he was on and he was getting on base with a hit. And I know that defies current Moneyball logic, but he's fun to watch.
Yeah, it was weird for him, like the thing that I told a lot of people was that the things that he doesn't necessarily always show up on a box score. He'll be on base 5 times in a game, but he might only have 2 hits, but he'll cause errors with his speed. People will rush their throws across. and either throw the ball away or just make an error, trying to get the ball because they're trying to get it out of their mitt fast. I mean, there's just I've seen him get on base about 150 different ways. And, like only a few of them are just like regular old base hits,
Yeah.
So fun guy to watch for sure.
Yeah. And the White Sox could use an on base guy, but I'm with you on that. Like, where do they see him? Just because, again, with the lack of pop and he's like 5'6" or 5'7". It's not like he's a prototypical guy. So that's why I was like, I got to ask Ian, is my love for this prospect overblown or not? So at least you reinforced my faith somewhat.
Yeah, he's fun. He's certainly fun to watch. And, his teammates like him, and, he does do a lot of things that we have not seen from the White Sox, in the contact realm, where he's sacrificing hitting the ball really hard for placing the ball in good spots and making contact. So.
All right. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the World Series. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back on Monday to discuss 3 stats that define the season. And feel free to leave comments about today's discussion with Ian Eskridge of FutureSox. And Ian, again, where can we get all your great content?
You can find us on Twitter at FutureSox. You can find me at Daily White Sox on Twitter. FutureSox.net. You can find all of our written content. You can find us on YouTube. There's highlights. I transfer them to YouTube as well. You can find us on our stream that's on YouTube, or if you prefer to listen to it in podcast, you can find the podcast anywhere you're looking.
All right. Well, Ian, again, I appreciate your time. I always love talking with you and James and Elijah. You guys, all 3 of you, give me hope, and I really appreciate the work that you guys do. You guys do the Lord's work. And again, you can leave comments about today's discussion. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On White Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. Have a good weekend, and I will see you Monday.